Well, welcome everyone. My name is David Fye, and I'm the Executive Director for the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board. I appreciate you attending the 2024 Informational Forum for Educators. I do have some introductory information to go ahead and read since we're doing this meeting remotely. So I'll go ahead and start with some of that information. Again, welcome on behalf of the staff of the BSRB. We're really happy to have you here today. I'm here as Executive Director for the agency. Also, Leslie Allen, Assistant Director and Licensing Manager for the BSRB, is in attendance as well. And on behalf of the agency, I want to thank you for taking the time to attend this event. Today's event is not an official board meeting of the BSRB or the board. Board members of the BSRB were not required to attend this meeting, or this forum. However, some members may have chosen to attend. The forum is not being broadcast on the BSRB YouTube channel. However, this meeting is being recorded, and we will attempt to upload it to the BSRB YouTube channel if we don't experience any technical issues. The chat has been turned off on this recording, so please hold any questions until the end of the forum. Before we get started, given the number of attendees, I would ask when individuals are not speaking that they mute themselves. That way we can avoid any kind of background noise. This educator forum is designed as a way for us to provide updates on recent changes to the statutes, regulations, and other items related to the work of the BSRB. The educator forum is specifically targeted for representatives of educational forums and other programs in the state of Kansas that issue degrees for professions regulated by the BSRB. Most of the time scheduled for this 1-hour educator forum will consist of an informational presentation. However, we'd like to provide some time for clarification and other questions at the end of the forum, so there will be time for Q&A and other questions when we get to the end of the forum. We are seeking to use this opportunity as a way to take a step forward in connecting with you all as educators. Many years ago, the BSRB held roundtable meetings with a handful of educators, but these in-person meetings were limited by physical space, time to travel, and other factors. And given the growth in programs that are spread across the state, hosting a remote meeting in this format provides us more of an opportunity to reach out to individuals with information, to answer questions from each of you, and also to listen to any comments. And when we started the effort to invite educators to this meeting, we used our list from last year. We started this event last year, and we used that as a base and attempted to add individuals to that list. But unfortunately, we know that we likely have missed some individual educators. So for anyone watching this recording afterwards, please know we didn't intend to omit anyone from this meeting or this forum, but we look forward to using this as an opportunity to add more contacts for future meetings. So just wanted to let you know that. And hopefully we have an even bigger group of similar attendees in the future. Before we allow time for introductions from individuals attending this meeting, let me say that outreach is an important goal for the BSRB. On an annual basis, I, as Executive Director, and also Leslie Allen, visit with different programs and visit schools, either doing remote presentations or doing some of those in person. We have met with individual students at several colleges and universities. We present information on licensing, disciplinary issues, and also ways the BSRB can assist students in becoming licensees under the BSRB. And so if you would like us to present information to your students, we welcome that opportunity. So just let me know, send an email to me after the forum today, and we'd be happy to look at a time either in the fall or spring or both, where we can talk directly to your students and help them along that process. So with those announcements out of the way, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Again, my name is David Fye, Executive Director for the BSRB, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Leslie Allen, and she can introduce herself to you all as well.
Hi, I'm Leslie Allen, Assistant Director and Licensing Manager for the BSRB. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Great. And as I said earlier, this is not an official meeting of the board. Board members were not required to attend this meeting, but some may be here in attendance if they wanted to attend these types of meetings. And so if there's any board members for the BSRB that would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to share that you're present and just to say hello to everyone.
Mary Jones, past chair of the BSRB board.
Dave Anderson, current chair, BSRB, represent LMLPs and LCPs.
Great. Okay. I don't see any other board members in attendance, but I'd allow now to give individuals the opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourselves from the different schools and colleges that we have in attendance. So maybe we'll just go ahead and open it up. And if any individuals here would like to go ahead and just introduce themselves, I think that would be helpful just so we would know all the different programs that we have attendees here from today. So I don't have any organization to this, but if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, feel free to go ahead and say your name. If someone from your program does start to introduce themselves, go ahead and jump on there afterwards so we can kind of group those introductions together.
Sure. Rhonda Peterson Deely, chair of the social work department at Washburn University.
And I'm Cindy Turk. I'm chair of the psychology department at Washburn University. Our master's program leads to the LMLP.
Hi, I'm Stacey Popejoy, and I am representing all of our faculty. You can't see all of us, but all of our social work faculty are here today. At WSU, sorry, WSU.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Rhonda Weimer. I'm the MSW Program Director at Fort Hays State University. We also have our chair, Tim Davis, in attendance, and our MSW BSW Field Director, Raquela Tuxhorn.
I'll try again. I'm Heather Frost. I'm at the University of Kansas, the Counseling Center. I'm the training director and a psychologist there.
And I'm Nancy Keppel. I'm the MSW Program Director at the KU School of Social Welfare. And my colleague, Vanessa, I'll popcorn over to you.
Hi, Vanessa Sanborn. I work in the Practicum office as an Associate Director of Practicum Education here at KU.
Hi, everybody. I'm also a KU person. I'm Kristen Hensley. I am representing our master's and doctoral programs in counseling psychology at KU.
I'm Kristen Humphrey, and this is Jeremy Wolf at Pittsburgh State, representing our BSW and MSW program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bambi Burgard. I am at Ottawa University, and I'm the program director for the master's degree program in counseling. And I'll popcorn over to Abigail Geiger, who is also with Ottawa University.
Hi, everyone. I'm a new faculty member at Ottawa University, also with the Master in Counseling program.
I'm Robin Blair. I'm also from Pitt State with Kristen and Jeremy. I'm the department chair of psychology and counseling and the clinical director for a program that leads to LMLP licensure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Janes, and I'm a professor in the Marriage and Family Therapy Master's Degree program at Friends.
Hi there, I'm Sierra Williams. I'm social work faculty and practicum director for the BSW program at Bethel.
All right, I'm Brian Weber. I'm the program director for the graduate level psychology and counseling programs at University of St. Mary.
I'm Bob Kirchner. I'm an instructor within that program, but I'm also the practicum coordinator.
My name is Todd Fry. I'm at Mid-American Nazarene University and serve as the Associate Vice President of the School Counselor Education.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Bonebrake. I'm the director of the counseling program at Central Seminary.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Mandrakia. I am the director of the Master's in Counseling Psychology program at Avila University.
Well, is there anyone who has not introduced themselves that would still like the
I
opportunity?
didn't want to jump in when other people were talking. Kristen Kramer, I'm from Kansas State University representing social work and addiction counseling.
I'm Sarah Kirk, and I'm the Associate Director of Clinical Training at the University of Kansas PhD Clinical Program.
Hello, I'm Serena Kent. I'm the MSW Field Education Director at Washburn University.
I'm Angela Duncan. I'm at Washburn University as well. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in our master's program. I'm a colleague of Cindy Turk.
Hi, I'm Jamie Hamilton Ansley, and I'm associate professor at Washburn.
Well, welcome everyone. Appreciate you all attending, and it's great to see some familiar faces and see some new faces. I look forward to visiting with you all, hopefully with an opportunity to meet you and your students at your schools, or maybe we can provide some remote assistance to you as well. So I'll go ahead and start the presentation today. And like I said, the chat has been turned off, and just to make sure that we keep things on schedule, go ahead and hold any questions you have, but we will leave time at the end. So if you have any questions about the material we presented, or if you have any questions about any other topics, hopefully Leslie and I can help you out with some good information. And if not, we can take your question down and then follow up afterwards. So I will go ahead and share my screen here with the presentation today. And if any of you would like a copy of this presentation, please go ahead and let me know. I will have it in PDF format, so I can go ahead and send that to you. So that way, feel free to share the information with any students or anyone else you think might find this information helpful. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, great. Well, I'll go ahead and go through some slides here. This is the informational forum for educators in 2024. And today is September 26th, 2024. We'll start with just kind of framing this information and just kind of making sure that you're all aware of the role that we play as the agency, the BSRB. So when the BSRB is formed, it was formed by the Kansas legislature, and it was formed to create, protect and serve the consumers of services offered by BSRB licensees. And that's through the issuance of licenses, resolution of complaints, and the creation of appropriate regulation accomplished through efficiency, fairness, and respect to all those involved. That's our mission. And a little bit of the history of the agency is that we were created in 1980 by the Kansas legislature. They went ahead and took the existing body, the Board of Psychology Examiners and the Social Work Examiners, put those two groups together. And then over the years, more professions have come under the board. Over the years, those professions that have come under the BSRB's jurisdiction have been professional counseling, master's level psychology, marriage and family therapy, addiction counseling, and also behavior analysis. Rather than have separate boards for psychology, social work, and all the other professions, what we have in Kansas is we have one board, and that is composed of professional members from the different professions and also public members. Some states call this a composite board. The board composition is in statute, so that is in law, and it says the board will be composed of the following individuals: 2 psychologists, 2 social workers, 1 marriage and family therapist, 1 professional counselor, 1 addiction counselor, 1 master's level psychologist, and then 4 public members. In terms of agency staff, the BSRB employs 12 staff members, including myself. We have an executive director, assistant director, and licensing manager, and we also have licensing specialists, investigators, and also clerical employees to assist the agency. Currently, right now, there are 15,858 active permanent licenses under the board, and that is compared to about 12,152 in July of 2015. So over the course of a little under 10 years, there has been a tremendous increase in the number of licensees and the number of individuals that we are regulating across those 7 professions there. Every full board meeting, which occurs every other month, we give the board a list of all of the current totals of permanent licenses by license type. So I know some of you may be more familiar with some of these acronyms than others, but this just gives you a snapshot view of the different levels of licensing that we oversee and what the current count is for those different levels of licensing. The biggest profession that we oversee is social work, and they make up about 55% of our total licensees. In terms of licensing trends, since July of 2015, the number of permanent licenses has increased by 30.5%, from 12,152 to 15,858. Just for context, over that same period of time, the population growth in Kansas has only been about 1.5%. So the number of licensees is a really positive aspect here. During that time, the number of clinical licenses the BSRB has overseen has increased by 67.7% from 3,738 back in July of 15 to 6,269. However, I've been a part of a few different workforce studies that are going on right now. And unfortunately, even though the number of licensees has increased, the demand for services and the need for individuals to provide those services is outpacing the number of licensees that are entering the field. So while it is really helpful that we are increasing the number of individuals that are providing services, I just want you to keep that in mind, that based on the information we're receiving, we're still hearing that there's a tremendous need for services. Overall, the professions with the largest increases are professional counseling, social work, and behavior analysis. I mentioned outreach as something that's very important to the BSRB. This meeting is really being held by BSRB staff to educators here in the state of Kansas. The assistant director and we speak to different groups of students. We try to provide information on licensing and disciplinary matters to provide a proactive approach to assist individuals before they become licensed. And like I said earlier, if any of you would like a presentation for your students, please reach out and let us know. We also, since about January of 2021, we have been broadcasting all of our board meetings. And then also there are 7 standing subcommittees of the board. We call these advisory committees. And there's an advisory committee for each of the 7 professions the board oversees. And so these board meetings and advisory committee meetings are broadcast on a YouTube channel, not just live, but they're available afterwards. So if you're not able to watch them when they occur, you can go back and follow any of that information. Since about January of 2021, we've had about 170 board or advisory committee meetings streamed, live, or uploaded. They have been viewed now almost 10,000 times. And so in the past, before we had a channel, from what I have heard, we had at most maybe 10 in-person attendees across all the board meetings, advisory committee meetings over the course of a year. Now it's really incredible what we're able to do with being proactive and getting the information out there. And so people can be more educated about some of these different topics. And also the conversations that the board is having about possible changes to the statutes and regulations for the different professions. Our website is also a really good resource. It's at ksbsrb.ks.gov. We have recently moved to a new website. It's under Granicus. However, our website address has not changed. So if you do have that and you make that available to your students, don't worry, it will still work. The front page will look a little different if you haven't visited our website in a few months. But we do have some increased functionality. The same processes and content should be there, but it's intended to help with ease of use for mobile users. As we're seeing a transition from a lot of people accessing more information with their phones, this should be helpful. But just some of the features on the website, you can have a portal to renew your licenses or track the program or the process of your application. You can also access copies of forms, policies, and publications. There's links to statutes and regulations. Proposed changes to statutes and regulations are also visible when those are going through. And then complaint forms and disciplinary orders are published there, and also information on board and advisory committee meetings. Now let's get into the topic for this meeting today. I wanted to give you some information on recent changes in law and some things that which you may be interested in or your students or may affect your programs. So first, I'll go ahead and go over some updates in terms of some multi-state compacts. If you're not super familiar with multi-state compacts, essentially to frame this conversation, historically, every state has had authority to go ahead and set the rules in terms of allowing individuals to practice certain professions in their state. So if you wanted to practice psychology in Kansas and Missouri, you would have to meet the requirements of both Kansas. And then if you want to practice in Missouri, you'd also meet the requirements that Missouri set forth as well. However, there's been an increased mobility of practitioners. There have been military members and military spouses that have been asked to relocate to different states. And so in order to assist in this process, a big mover with this was the Department of Defense. They made some grant money available to try to push if there could be multi-state compacts for some of the professions. And a number of the professions have come forward and have tried to find similar standards that the states have. So perhaps there could be some common ground to assist with individuals being able to provide services, or vice versa, not just mobility of licensees, mobility of clients. When you have individuals that move from one state to another who go on vacation, being able to provide the continuity of services is important as well. And so in 2021, Kansas joins our first compact relevant to the BSRB, and that was the SIPAC compact. and that was in 2021, Senate Bill 170. 2 years later, last year, the legislature passed the Professional Counseling Multi-State Compact, which is House Bill 2288. And then this year, most recently, the legislature passed the Social Work Multi-State Compact, which was House Bill 2484. Just some information about some of those compacts. The SIPAC Compact for psychologists. This is a multi-state compact designed for licensed psychologists. It does not include master's level psychologist or the clinical level of that profession, a licensed clinical psychotherapist. They're not eligible for the compact. It's only the licensed psychologist. And a psychologist state must have passed the compact legislation, and the psychologist must hold a home state license in the compact member state. So you have to hold a permanent license, and your state must have passed the compact. And then what the compact allows is for psychologists to apply to the SIPAC Commission for either the ability to provide telehealth services in other member states or the ability to provide up to 30 days of in-state practice in all other compact member states over the course of a year. And if a psychologist does that, then they're able to provide telehealth services into all of the different compact states. And I think as of right now, there are somewhere around 40 different states that have passed the SIPAC compact. And then if approved, they pay the relevant fee to the SIPAC Commission. Yes, as of September 24, 42 states have passed legislation to join the compact and are now all effective members. Some states pass legislation with an effective date in the future, but as of now, 42 states have passed it and they are all active. The only states that have not passed the compact yet for psychologists is California, Iowa, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Montana, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon. And in terms of Kansas, currently there's almost about 100 licensed psychologists who have a Kansas home state license who have authorization to practice telepsychology in other compact states. So almost about 100 of the licensed psychologists. As you might imagine, if psychologists here are providing services into other states, how does that work in terms of individuals in other states providing services into Kansas to help meet some of the need for services? SIPAC has started asking authorization holders, is what they call them, to report which states they are providing services into. And based on the initial data that is being reported right now, it appears that about every quarter, we have about 40 unique individual psychologists who are providing telepsychology services into Kansas. And so over the course of the year, probably somewhere around 150, 160 psychologists, extra psychologists are providing services into Kansas. More information on SIPAC is available at that website, sipac.org. Concerning the Professional Counseling Multi-State Compact, this is a compact that passed last year. It is a relatively new compact. It is designed for the independent or clinical professional counselors. So in Kansas, it would be applicable to our licensed clinical professional counselors, LCPCs. However, it would not be eligible for the individuals at the non-clinical level, the licensed professional counselors. Currently, the Compact Commission has a goal for the compact to be operational sometime in 2025, and I think probably towards the end of 2025 is looking more likely. Under the Professional Counseling Compact, a clinical professional counselor state must have passed the compact legislation, and the individual clinical professional counselor must hold a permanent license in their home state. So assuming those both are true and they meet other requirements, the clinical professional counselor would be able to obtain a privilege to practice in a specific compact member state by paying a separate fee. And like I said, the compact is not operational yet, but once it becomes operational, individuals who meet the qualifications of the compact would be able to, instead of doing traditional licensure, you could get a privilege to practice, which is similar to a license, but you would have to get a separate one of those through the Compact Commission in any state that you would want to practice using that method of practice. It would not prevent you from continuing to get a license if you chose to do that. It's just another opportunity, another way to practice in those states. The Compact Commission is currently in the process of building the data system and determining rules for the compact. Right now, if you want to see if someone is practicing in Kansas, you can go to our website and use our verification portal. However, if you're going to be opening this up to individuals practicing in a number of different states that don't have a specific license to check, there needs to be a way for the systems to all work together and for the Compact Commission to know and hold out to the public who is authorized to practice under what method. And so that's one of the main reasons why they're building that data system. And then among the rules, a 60-hour degree is required, although there is some language in a rule they're going forward with right now that says graduates with fewer hours may qualify if their degree was attained prior to July 1st, 2023. And that has to do with sort of a grandfathering in. But after that date that the compact became effective in Kansas, we would need to be able to verify to the Compact Commission that the type of degree someone had was the 60-hour degree as part of meeting the other requirements to be able to practice under that compact. So for more information on the Counseling Compact, they have a website, it's counselingcompact.org. Concerning the most recent compact, the Social Work Multi-State Compact, this was passed by the legislature during the 2024 legislative session. It was designed for bachelor's, master's, or clinical level social workers. The model language stated that at least 7 states would need to pass the model legislation. The compact commissioners could begin to meet to determine operating rules for the compact and work on building the data system for the compact. The compact language was finished in the spring of 2023, but it was finished so late that only 1 state was able to pass that, and that was Missouri. During the 2024 legislative session, Kansas was that 7th state to pass the compact language, and currently 22 states have passed the language. Although it's anticipated that the total will increase to, I would guess, at least 35 next year, and probably when all is said and done, they will probably have comparable numbers close to what the SIPAC Commission has, which is around 40 to 42 states. Under the model for the social workers, it's a different model. So compact member states would now get a new ability. They would be authorized to not only issue a single state license, but alternatively, they could issue a multi-state license. And if you had a multi-state license, this would allow social workers to practice teleservices or physical in-person services in all compact member states without paying any additional fees to those states or to the commission. So the social work one is set up a little bit differently given the multi-state model. According to the information on the Social Work Compact website, one of the conditions of eligibility for social workers wishing to practice under the compact is that they must have passed a qualifying national exam corresponding to the category of multi-state license sought, and other conditions do apply. So if you are looking at that, this is, the compact just recently was enacted. It is not operational yet either. I think a conservative estimate to shoot for in terms of operating would be the end of 2025. But the Rules Committee and the commissioners just started meeting. So I think there will be a number of things to be decided. Also, one of the main topics is how to fund that commission, and then some choices in terms of operating the commission. So like I said, first meeting of the compact commissioners was in September of 2024. A number of the rules of the compact need to be worked through. There's also some topics including who will be in attendance during some of the meetings. But yeah, funding the compact, the data system for the compact, other items. For information on the social work compact, you could go to that website, and that's swcompact.org. Now let's turn to a new category. Last year, when we held the Informational Forum for Educators, we focused on recent changes in law. And I gave sort of a presentation that talked about some of the bills that had passed and become statutes during the 2021 legislative session, the 22 legislative session, and the 23 legislative session. And there were some significant changes. Today, I want to focus on sort of the other side of the coin, and that has to do with regulation. So when a bill is enacted and becomes law or amends an existing law, it becomes a statute. So if you see a reference to KSA, that stands for Kansas Statute Annotated. And so that would be the product of a bill going before the legislature, that becoming enacted, it becoming law, and that's the KSAs. And statutes provide the broad authority for agencies to implement the law. But however, the statutes rarely give full details on how to implement the law. So agencies have authority to create regulations to help implement or interpret the law. Once a regulation goes through the necessary process, it has the force and effect of law. And so if you're looking at regulations, those are often referred to as KARs, and that stands for Kansas Administrative Regulations. On our website for the BSRB, we do have links to the statute. The statutes are linked from the Reviser of Statutes office. That's the entity in the state of Kansas that actually writes the law following the legislative session. The Kansas Administrative Regulations are hosted by the Secretary of State. And so we do a live link to their website so you can access those. Both are important. Both have a different purpose, but they are both very, very valuable. So last year, As I mentioned here, the BSRB forum focused on the changes to the statute, but this one we're going to explain some of the recent changes to the regulation and some of the upcoming proposed changes as well. So first, let's go ahead and start with some recent changes in the regulation in 2022. So as you may recall, one of the big things that happened prior to these regulation changes was the pandemic. And at that time, there was a lot of discussion about traditional means of doing a number of different things versus doing them remote. And some conversations were even happening before then, but because of the pandemic, a lot of things moved, in my opinion, a little quicker. So a number of these changes relate to some of the change that occurred related to the ability to do supervision, and as it relates to the ability to do it not just in person, but also being able to do some of the supervision or all the supervision by televideo. So for the psychology profession, one of the changes in that regulation and the definitions was a definition of direct client contact was added, which included clarifying what would qualify, such as televideo, and what does not qualify as direct client contact. And some of the things that didn't qualify included things like text messages and other types of things that didn't rise to the level of being direct client contact. Also, there was a definition of extenuating circumstances that was added, and that helps the board kind of explain the test that needs to be applied in certain cases when you're trying to look at maybe an alternative path for certain things. Additionally, under KAR 102-1-5A, supervised experience, clarifying language was added, allowing face-to-face supervision to be either in person, by screen, or in person or by televideo, so long as confidentiality of technology is protected and there is still means to have a discussion, observation, and review of documentation. Also, language was added allowing supervision by telephone under extenuating circumstances approved by the board. And I probably should have said this at the very beginning of the presentation, but when you go through and you make edits to the regulation, there's a number of different things that are affected. And so this will focus on most of the changes, and specifically the high-level changes that I thought were most relevant to you and your programs. There are going to be some smaller changes that are not covered in these materials. So if you do have questions about any of the specific things that were not covered in this, just know that this is not meant to be comprehensive of every single change, but it will explain most of the big changes. In terms of also the psychology profession, KAR 102-1-5A, supervised experience, there was previous language that was limiting the use of televideo or telephonic means to provide that supervision to 1 out of every 4 sessions. In that previous language, that restriction that was removed. For the social work profession, there was a regulation definition, and similar to what the psychology change was, there was a new definition of direct client contact, which expanded to the televideo and clarifying practices that would qualify as well as those that would not qualify. The definition of extenuating circumstances already existed for social work, but it was modified to create a sort of a test that would require an extreme nature of an event, and also clarify that the event created either the inability or the inadvisability of compliance. There was also a definition of 1 hour that was added to clarify that 1 period or the combined 2 periods would be acceptable to meet the standard of the 1 hour as it was referenced in some of the other regulations. In KAR 102-2-8 under supervision, there was language that was changed for 1 hour of clinical supervision per hours of direct client contact. There was basically a change from 1 hour for every 20 hours to 1 hour for every 15 hours, which was consistent with some of the changes in law going from the 4,000 hours to the 3,000 hours. Also under KAR 102-2-12, LSCSW license requirements for the required completion of graduate level supervised clinical practicum of professional experience, including psychotherapy and assessment. The specific requirement of not less than 350 hours of direct client contact was removed. And that is consistent with the change that was made to the law during the 2021 legislative session. Previously, a lot of the professions had a certain number of hours that were specified, included in that practicum requirement. For social work, there was an action by the legislature that year to remove that specific number of 350 hours. And so the regulation was updated in compliance with the change in the law. Additionally, under the requirements for LSCSW licensure, other language was updated to match the changes in statute. included lowering the number of required hours of postgraduate supervised clinical social work practice experience for individuals seeking a clinical license from 4,000 hours to 3,000 hours. And also other language was lowered or changed to reflect the lower number of total hours for postgraduate supervised clinical experience from 2,000 hours to 1,500 hours, and to lower the number of hours for supervisory meetings from 150 hours to 100 hours. Language is also added to clarify that there should be 2 separate clinical supervision sessions per month, at least one being individual supervision. Under KAR 102-3-1 for professional counseling, you're going to see some similar changes involving the definition of direct client contact. Also, there was the definition of extenuating circumstances that was added, and a definition of related field was added for the professional counseling profession. Under the educational requirements, language was changed to allow applicants from non-accredited schools to meet the alternative requirements for licensure if their graduate degree was in a related field. Previously, it required that their graduate degree was in professional counseling. Also, the number of hours in a practicum for professional counseling previously was listed at 350, but that was changed in law to 280. And also the law had been changed to decrease the number of hours from 4,000 to 3,000. And so this change was made in the regulations to match as well. And additionally, language noting availability of a supervisor was replaced with language regarding an extenuating circumstance if the applicant wished to use an alternate supervisor. So prior to the opening up of supervision to do it by televideo, there was sort of a test that had to do with the availability of a supervisor. And we looked a little bit at the physical proximity, how close someone was to provide the supervision. But with the change to allow all supervision by televideo, that standard really doesn't apply the same way that it used to. And so if you can get telesupervision anywhere across the state, really it would look to, if you wanted to use an alternative path of who you wanted to provide that supervision, it was no longer based off of availability of a supervisor. It was based on whether extenuating circumstance was present, necessitating you to use an alternative path for that supervision. Under KAR 102-4-1A, for the master's level psychology definition, the definition of direct client contact was added, as was extenuating circumstances, and the definition of 1 hour. Also, under the postgraduate supervised professional work experience, 150 hours of supervision was changed to 100 hours, and other changes were consistent with the changes in law. For the marriage and family therapy profession, under KAR 102-5-1, new definitions of direct client contact and extenuating circumstances, as well as the definition of 1 hour. And then there was also a reference to 2,000 clock hours of postgrad supervised experience, which was changed to 1,500 hours, consistent with the other changes in law. Under KAR 102-5-7A, for professional postgrad supervised experience, again, some changes were made to reflect changes from 4,000 to 3,000 hours, also clarifying the 1 hour of supervision per 15 hours of direct client contact, and that 1 hour of supervision, 100 hours of supervision were required. For addiction counseling under KAR 102-7-1 and the definition, there's a replacement of the definition of client contact with direct client contact, and also a new definition of extenuating circumstances, definition of 1 hour, and then also a definition of under direction. There were also some various additional language that was added for the LMACs. And then for professional postgrad supervised experience, again, similar to what I explained for the other professions, some changes consistent in law to reduce the number of hours from 4,000 to 3,000, 1 hour for every 15 hours of direct client contact, and then 100 hours of supervision. Moving to the next year, in 2023, the BSRB put forward some changes to regulations. These were actually put in as a temporary change first, and then we followed it up with a permanent change. And this was put forward originally, I believe, in July, and then it was followed up later in the fall, maybe in September or October. But basically, a lot of these had to do with fee updates. So there was a very big bill that passed last year. It was sub for Senate Bill 131. And in that bill, a number of new license types were created. And the statute sets the cap for those fees, but the regulation sets the amount for the fees. So also additionally, the board had voted to lower the fees for most temporary licenses. so that all the temporary licensees would be $50. Some of them had been as high as $175, but now there is consistency with the temporary license fee for all the professions. Some of the new licenses that were created in that bill that the fee regulations were set for those were the temporary candidacy, bachelor's or master's social work license. This was something new that was created in the statute. It's for programs that are trying to become accredited. They're going through that candidacy process. But if students graduate from those programs before they gain accreditation, they can now get this special temporary candidacy, bachelor's or master's social work license and be able to practice under that. They could also renew it another time. And then if their program becomes accredited, then they can get the permanent license. But that amount was set at $50. There's also a new process by which individuals can reinstate their license more quickly if they need to do their continuing education hours. The board had authorized a 6-month temporary license for people who had not done those yet. And that amount for that 6-month temporary license was set at $25. There was also some community-based licenses that were created by the legislature in that bill. This was set at the same amount as the temporary license fee. Those last for 2 years, and they're basically an alternative to the temporary license, but they're for individuals who still need to pass their licensing examination to get a permanent license, and you have to work in certain specific facilities and meet other conditions to be able to qualify for those community-based licenses. Additionally, in this regulation, the board had proposed a new policy that was enacted by the legislature to decrease the cost to reinstate a license for someone who'd been out of the profession for at least a year. So people who had walked away from the profession because of their own health or someone's health they were taking care of, or professional burnout, or another number of different reasons. If they had been out of the field for at least a year, but wanted to come back and practice, the board wanted to incentivize them to do so and make that path easier. So now that amount is half the cost of what it was previously, and that amount was confirmed in the regulation in terms of them being able to come back for the lower amount. Additionally, I mentioned that SIPAC compact, that language that when the bill was passed allowed the board to charge a fee up to $25 for privilege to practice for psychologists practicing under the compact, and the board did set that amount at the $25 fee. And part of the reason for that, the SIPAC compact actually charges a fee to the BSRB every year. It looks back to see how many psychologists are practicing under SIPAC with the Kansas home state license, and then it charges the BSRB $10 per year per psychologist. So this fee allows the board to make up that amount. And then there's the additional amount based on our ability to do investigations about individuals who are practicing in Kansas under the compact. So the board determined that fee would be charged upon renewal. And so the first opportunity we had to assess that fee was earlier this year when all the psychologists renewed at the end of June. Moving next to the most recent regulation changes that happened in 2024. These were changes primarily to education regulations. So for individuals who receive their education from non-accredited programs, the regulations previously allowed an alternative path, and they still do. But the program level requirements and coursework level requirements still need to be met for those individuals in the regulation. So for social work, professional counseling, marriage and family therapy, and addiction counseling professions, the previous language said if you received your education from a program that is accredited by the national accrediting body, you can move forward through the process because we know that your program has met certain standards. But for individuals who attended a program that is not accredited by one of the national accrediting bodies, we need you to meet the alternative requirements in the regulation. And one of those requirements was that a certain amount of the coursework had to be in residence. That in residence language said the definition for that was that you had to be at the physical location at the school in front of core faculty for the certain number of hours that were required to be in residence. Under the new change, following the change to the regulation, for social work, professional counseling, marriage and family therapy, and addiction counseling, the new language allows the in residence definition to be met by either being physically at the school or face-to-face contact by screen by synchronous real-time video conferencing. So this opens it up to a lot of the online-only programs that didn't have a physical location for their school, and it also allows the schools that do have a physical presence to be able to meet some of these requirements by screen. You still have the face-to-face component, and it has to be synchronous, but you can allow this increased flexibility. Also, for the marriage and family therapy profession, the previous language required the in-residence definition to be met from applicants who attended either accredited or non-accredited schools. The new language only requires the in-residence requirement to be met from applicants who attended non-accredited schools. Also, in terms of other changes for addiction counseling, the national accrediting body was not previously identified. For most of the professions, there's a national accrediting body, for example, KCREP for professional counseling, but for addiction counseling, there wasn't one recognized by the board. So if we had an unfamiliar program, it often required expert review. So in these changes to the regulations, the board recognized the National Addiction Studies Accreditation Commission as an accrediting body. So applicants attending a school accredited by NASAC will no longer need to meet the alternative requirements. We can move those people through the process more quickly. Also for addiction counseling, certain coursework requirements and language in those courseworks were adjusted to allow more flexibility. One specific reference was in KAR 102-4-3A, C1D2. It replaces the use of the word substance use with biopsychosocial needs for the coursework requirement. And this had to do with a course that was really focusing on individual counseling and methods of individual counseling, but it did include substance use. And so there was a thought that that could be limiting for certain applicants who came from certain programs. For master's level psychology, historically a national accrediting body did not exist. So the regulations included removing the distinction between core faculty and other faculty, which had been a problem for certain students trying to meet the alternative requirements for licensure. And this was just in terms of being able for those programs to meet certain ratios, such as for students to faculty. Also for other changes, the professional counseling profession, for applicants from non-accredited schools, new language allows the person sharing or directing the program to have a doctoral degree in a related field. The previous language had required that it was only a professional counseling. That person must have a doctoral degree in professional counseling. There was also other various changes to sync up with new changes in the law, such as the board's position they brought forward in that bill to increase the amount of time for temporary licenses. Most of them previously had only lasted for 12 months. The board recommended they now last for 24 months. And so some of those changes were syncing things up with the changes in law. And then in terms of some upcoming changes, the board is having a lot of discussion about future changes, looking at workforce and other possible issues in terms of modernizing the requirements for licensure and other things. The board has had a lot of discussion about changes to unprofessional conduct regulations, and those are about ready to move forward. And so that is one set of proposed regulations that we anticipate coming forward sometime soon. Also proposed changes to the continuing education regulations for all professions. Additionally, changes to supervision regulations. And one example of a change, there is currently the process by which individuals follow when they're seeking a clinical license to submit a training plan, have that approved, and then they have to submit changes to the board within 45 days of making those changes. Well, we've had individuals that have not met that requirement, have not notified the board about changes, and the current language is pretty strict in terms of the board's ability to review those changes. The board is in favor of making a change to this to allow the board the ability to review those types of changes so that things that would have fit under this without that rule requirement could possibly be able to be moved forward by the board, but that's a change that will need to go through the process before it becomes official. So these are some examples of some upcoming changes. The board is meeting actually at the end of this week. The annual planning meeting for the board occurs on Sunday in Lawrence from 5:30 to 7:30, and then they're also having an all-day planning meeting on Monday from 9 o'clock until 3:30. So I just wanted to kind of leave with my contact information here. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We were all in contact by email, so you should have my contact information, but happy to follow up with you. But I know I covered a lot of ground. I will stop sharing my screen now and then open it up for questions. If you have any questions about any of the material we covered today, or any material that we didn't cover, but you just have questions on in general, and Leslie and I will do our best to answer your questions. And alternatively, if you don't have any questions over the material we covered, as I mentioned, the board will be meeting at that out-of-town planning meeting this weekend. Do you have any comments or things you'd like to share that I can help deliver back to the board? Any positive comments, any concerns, any potential thoughts on future changes or things you'd like the board to discuss or possibly take a look at changing?
David, can I ask a clarifying question regarding the field practicum hours for both? And this probably applies to multiple degrees, but I'm specifically wondering for addiction counseling. For the hours, can those be completed across multiple sites, or do they all have to be completed at one location?
And I'll probably turn it over to Leslie if she's still on the call. She might be able to answer that because she works with some of our licensing specialists that review some of those training plans.
So they do, I mean, if the practicum is approved at multiple sites, then the hours from all the sites would count. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, we just wanted to clarify that because like in addiction counseling, it's hard to find like enough specifically substance use facilities. So if they were doing kind of that substance use counseling at like a homeless shelter and they split their time between a substance use facility and a homeless shelter, would that count?
Yes.
Thanks.
Good question. Anybody have any other questions or any comments? Alternatively, I would like to hold these types of forums at least once a year. Are there any other topics you would like to hear at a future forum or something for me to kind of look into or kind of summarize that would be helpful for you? Anything for the future that we can kind of prepare for?
David, I have a lot of students who inquire about reciprocity. They're getting excited about years down the road, they move. Is there a way we could learn more about that, or you can direct us to what that looks like?
Yes, I can give you some information today, and I can definitely add it for the future. So there's a few different ways that you can get licensure by reciprocity. Now, I will caveat this, that a few of the fields, there's some big changes going on with those multi-state compacts, and there's going to be other ways to practice. But if you're looking at licensure through reciprocity, most of the professions have a statute specifically for licensure by reciprocity. And those statutes basically say that if you come from a state that has the same license requirement, there's no period of time that you would need to wait. As long as the requirements for licensure were the same from that state in Kansas, you would be able to get licensed in Kansas as well. And Leslie, please feel free to interject if I'm not describing this correctly, but there was also some changes in law. One of the bills that passed back in 2021 changed reciprocity for military members and military spouses, but it also affected individuals that reside in Kansas or intend to reside in Kansas. And it basically had a new standard of 12 months to establish the ability to get licensure by reciprocity. So under that, you had to basically have a license for 12 months with a similar scope of practice to what Kansas would allow. Prior to that, the board did have a reciprocity statute, but it required practice for 48 of the past 54 months. You had to basically be practicing somewhere for about 4 years. Well, following the passage of that bill in 2021, it created a fair amount of confusion, and as far as who would qualify for it, who wouldn't. So one of the changes that the board made also to address workforce and other issues, the board decided to lower the amount of time in the reciprocity statute from 48 months down to 12 months to match that time frame for that military bill. And so now those reciprocity statutes basically say that if you come from a state with the same license requirements, you can come in immediately. If you come from a state that doesn't have the same, but you have a similar scope of practice, as long as you have held that license for 12 months, then you could get licensure in Kansas through reciprocity after that 12-month time period.
Thank you.
I would just add that we don't have reciprocity with any specific state. So if they're moving out of state, they would need to contact the state where they're going to.
That's true. What I describe is the process if you're starting out somewhere else, or if you happen to move and then you want to come back to Kansas. If you get licensed here and you want to practice somewhere else, yeah, all the different states have different requirements. We don't have a specific agreement with Kansas and any specific state. So it would be just kind of on a state-by-state basis what they would allow.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Well, if you think of something afterwards, or if something occurs to you and you feel more comfortable sending that over email, that's perfectly fine too. Just go ahead and send me an email after the presentation, and I'll do my best to get back to you. It may be potentially sometime in the middle of next week, given that we have the upcoming forum tomorrow for the employers, and then we have the board meeting over the weekend. But I'll try to follow up with you as soon as I can to answer any other questions you might have. But want to thank you all for attending. I hope you found this information to be helpful. And like I said, again, I'll make a plug for our YouTube channel. Feel free to use that as a tool to learn about the information and the board and all the discussions that are taking place. And then if you would like Leslie and I to present information to your students, please feel free to ask us. It's something that we really enjoy doing. And we find that if we take a proactive approach, we can avoid a lot of the issues when people apply for licensure or if they get a complaint against them with the disciplinary approach too. It's just nice to have a lot of good information at the beginning. So, well, thank you for attending, and I will hopefully see you all next year at another forum.